Okay, okay. Take your seats. Settle down. Settle down. Welcome to the Road to Concord 101. This class is about all things connected to the path of history leading from Mount Sinai to Lexington Green and the individual liberty and freedom of man. If you're in the wrong place, feel free to get up and go see the registrar's office about dropping this class, preferably before you meet the professor. In the event you do not already know this, your professor is Joe Bakanovic, and he has a bit of a reputation on campus. He is most definitely an acquired taste, but if you can learn to tolerate him, he will make you better at defending your position, whatever it may be. I'm T.A. Charlie. I'm here to help the professor, but more importantly, you. We encourage you to take notes, and if you have questions, feel free to call. If you'd like the number, please email us. You can also post your questions in the comments, and we'll get the professor's attention. Part of my job is to let you know a little bit about your professor. As I said earlier, the professor has that bit of a reputation on campus. Not all of it is good. Let me help explain a little with a story about how I came to be the professor's TA. I was invited to attend one of his classes. My first impression of the professor was that he was an egotistical, narcissistic know-it-all. My intent after only a few minutes of class was never to attend another class with this professor. But after class, Professor Joe came up to me and thanked me for my class participation and told me that my perspective was valuable, and he asked me to keep coming to class. This actually took me back a little. To me, he seemed inconsistent. What was I to do? I decided to continue coming to his classes. As I did, I actually started doing what he does encourage students to do. Check behind him and see if what he is teaching is actually correct. I have done this over and over again, and generally speaking, I found what he teaches to be backed by sound, valid, and rational arguments from reputable sources. When I have challenged him and provided a sound, valid, and rational argument in opposition to his current position, he immediately changed his position and thanked me for correcting him. Why do I tell you all this? Professor Joe is a little rough around the edges, especially in the way he delivers his content. But if you stick with him and listen to what he teaches and then go and check his sources, you will likely find, as I did, he will help you better understand the world around you and help you to think better and hopefully to live better. At least that is our hope. One last note. This class builds on itself. Therefore, it is important to attend class regularly. We will not always have time to go over previously covered material. If you are new, we suggest you watch our older classes. We've created playlists to help you with those things we feel are of special importance. Now, let's get started.
Good morning. It's Thursday, December 18th, 2025. This is the Road to Concord. I am your host, Joe Bakanovic. Before we get going today, it's part 2 of a series we're doing on race versus culture and cultural relativism. But we'll get to that. Got a little housekeeping to do. First things first, this is the last Road to Concord show of 2025. We will return on January 5th. If you have not already done so, please subscribe to wherever you're watching us. I'd prefer you subscribe on Rumble, but I'd also like it if you watch us on YouTube or Twitch or Facebook or X. I'd like it if you subscribe to those channels as well. It helps the show find a bigger audience without having to cost anybody any money, and it only takes you time to, subscribe. Most of the time, you just click a button, and what that does is make sure you get to keep up with us. I would really enjoy it and be appreciative if you would go to the roadtoconcord.com and subscribe to the blog page where we can really talk to you and where we provide all of the show notes and supporting documentation, information, and references for our content. Now, we got one other thing to discuss real quick. and it deals with our other, parallel channel, We Who Are Lost. I've been talking to Charlie about this. Um, we're going to tackle Genesis. This was recommended by a couple of people. We're going to tackle Genesis. I don't know when. I'm torn on this. I don't know whether or not we should take one of the days away from the Road to Concord to give it to the study of Genesis or to apologetics or what. I'm toying with the idea of doing Genesis on the Road to Concord and tackling the study of Genesis not as a scriptural study, but as a logical study. Charlie, what would you think of that? A logic / history / theological philosophy study.
Actually, I'd be in favor of that because, as we've talked about many times in the show, most, if not all, of Genesis is a polemic.
Yes,
so if
which
you look
makes
at
it
it
history.
from that, so if you look at it from that perspective, along with applying the logic and stuff, that would go a long way to helping to understand it, I think.
All right, we might start doing apologetics on this show on Mondays, and apologetics in a larger stance, which would make Genesis, we would tackle it as an apologetics class, treating it as though it's not mythology, not religion, but actual history. And tackling it on its terms. As we were discussing just the first sentence, that first sentence of Genesis, we'll spend at least an hour on.
Yeah,
that's
the whole show. Yep.
That could be a 2-hour show just on that one sentence. And what is it, 5 words or something like that?
I think 6, but yeah, somewhere in there.
You have no idea. And I can guarantee you, even if you've studied it in depth, you have no idea just how. Charlie, did I surprise you with where I ran with it today when we talked?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But you got to
know you've studied this chapter.
You also have to be careful with it because, that's one of the things I'll probably bring up too, is that some people take that verse and go different directions without some support, I think. So you got to be a little careful with it too. So, I mean, we're going to present some things to think about, and such, but we'll also tell you when we're speculating and say, it could be this way, but we're speculating here.
So
but,
those of you who asked for that, that's the way I'm leaning right now.
Yeah.
Mondays will be a Road to Concord show. We'll be tackling the book of Genesis from the Bible from it's called theology, but that's the science of God. But we'll be tackling it as though it's real.
Yeah. What you thought you knew about the book of Genesis.
Yeah. Let me tell you.
That's kind of the playlist title, maybe.
Yeah. You know what? It is what you thought you knew about the book of Genesis. Yes. Yeah. That'll be excellent. Very good suggestion, Charlie. So January 5th show will primarily be a housekeeping show. We'll explain to you what changes and what plans we've made over the break. And, we'll do all of that. But probably January 12th will be the start of a scriptural earthquake for a lot of people. And if you have friends who think the Bible's just a bunch of hokum, this is going to be a show for them to watch.
Yeah.
This series you're not going to be able to get away from the forceful claims that are in the book of Genesis. And if you think science will handle all of it, no, it won't. No, it won't. So,
metaphysics, maybe.
Yeah, metaphysics. But Charlie's going to help me with the Hebrew. But at the risk of sounding like an arrogant little boaster, I connect the first word of Genesis to the last word of Revelation in very different ways than any other teacher I have yet encountered. Am I overstating it, Charlie?
No, I don't think so.
And I've read a lot of teachers.
And I
watch a lot of them.
That's why I work hard to go behind you and double check you and stuff like that as best I can to make sure we're teaching what can be supported at least by the scriptures. Not saying that we're always right, but we try to at least be able to show more than one place in the scriptures that supports our hypothesis.
So this has got me excited. The more I've thought about it, I am intellectually on fire to do this.
I'm looking forward to it, but it's going to be a lot of work for both of us.
On this end of
it, but it's going to, in the end, I think it'll be worth it. And I think people will enjoy this series. But it's going to be a marathon. So get ready.
Before we get done and get into the meat of today's class, if you're interested in what we're talking about with the Genesis study, get yourself a notebook.
Yep.
A thick one.
and if you have questions or comments, or you've got an idea of how you'd like us to do this, joe@theroadtoconcord.com or admin at We Who Are Lost, whichever you care. Don't matter. We'll get the emails, but I think this is going to be good, and it will it'll make some challenges to people.
Oh yeah, I'm going to demand you unlearn most of what you thought you know about Genesis.
Yeah,
because you're going to be looking at it from a in the beginning perspective.
Yeah.
So, all right. Appreciate it, Charlie. Let's get into it today. The Road to Concord.
Hanukkah Sameach.
Oh yeah, happy Hanukkah. So before we get into the idea of cultural relativism, let me explain to you why this is an important subject. We're going to get political. The American left has infiltrated our government and our society at all levels. And they have slowly started to turn our society towards secular humanism. Most of us understand this. If you've been watching this show for any length of time, I have brought you the receipts on this one in spades, because that is literally, word for word, almost, concept for concept, and even the language, that is what Woodrow Wilson said he was going to do. He's going to build a government within the existing government until he was strong enough to just turn it inside out. And lo and behold, now you have the new government. You and I call that the deep state. That is exactly what he said he was going to do. Now, why is this important? The political left aligned itself with Islam. I have told you about this book, David Horowitz, Unholy Alliance, published in 2004. Radical Islam and the American Left. OMG, you should not be allowed to serve in office until you have read this book at any level, including dog catcher. And then you should be forced to read this book, Andrew McCarthy, The Grand Jihad, How Islam and the Left Sabotaged America. It was written about a decade later. It's the same thing. It does not build off of Horowitz's book. He arrived at this revelation apparently independently. We have been warned since at least 2011 by a lady named Bat Ye'or. Europe, globalization, and the coming universal caliphate. She was warning Europe that the global elites, the secular global elites, the World Economic Forum and the quote unquote they, the EU and all of those people, were going to import, immigrants from Islam. And Islam was going to take over and turn Europe into a caliphate. Have you looked at Europe lately? That's exactly what has happened. England is falling right now. This lady warned us. Nobody wanted to pay attention because, it wasn't that bad a problem at the time. And I heard that recently from a friend of mine. Well, Islam's not that bad a problem in the United States just yet. It wasn't a problem in Europe when she started telling them it was going to be a problem in Europe. Nobody wanted to listen. The Western world is stupid this way. And then here's another book. I don't agree with his take on prophecy, but I totally agree on his take on Islam. This is God's War on Terror, Islam Prophecy in the Bible by Walid Shoebat and Joel Richardson. He's a former Muslim terrorist per his own words, Walid Shoebat. And he's going to tell you just how Islam works. And he will teach you a lot about Islam. So why did I say this? What's this got to do with culture and racism, Joe? Well, we're using cultural relativism and and racism and Islamophobia and all this other crap to shield Islam. Why? Because the left is politically aligned with Islam to get their money. Now, the left had to infiltrate our social systems. They had to get themselves elected, and they had to appoint their judges, and they had to get themselves hired into the universities, et cetera, et cetera. But since the left was already in control of, they built the deep state, when they aligned themselves with Islam, Islam didn't have to infiltrate. They just appointed Islam. They appointed Muslims into positions of government where they weren't elected, didn't have to be elected. They put them into positions of power in our social system. The Muslim Brotherhood has a lot of control and have a lot of control over the textbooks selected for 85% of our country's school system. If you don't know any of this, go subscribe to Jihad Watch. Pay attention to what those people have been trying to tell us for 2 decades now. So Islam has infiltrated at different levels of society, and now they're actually winning elections, open elections, and they're starting to call for and push Sharia law as a result. Now, remember, the left has already done this for us. We don't have to have constitutional amendment. We just pass a law that amends the Constitution, and the courts say, yep, that's okay. Well, you can now have Muslims in the court system. Islam is doing to the left the exact same thing that the left did to the American government, the American way of life. They've infiltrated it. They are a cancer, and they're metastasized, and they're going to take over. Just like I've told people, they're going to take over. They'll start by actually taking over the leftist machine, and they're doing that right now. They're in the process of doing it. But have no worries. All societies are equal. Islam is equal to ours. And if you object, that just proves that you're a racist, bigot, Islamophobe. See how that works? Islam is going to use the shield of secular humanism, the shield of Marxism, what we call political correctness. They're going to use that to shield their takeover of the deep state and then the country. And the problem is that we Americans accept it. We accept a lot of these arguments because the left has infiltrated us. We not only accept it, we even defend it. Why do we defend this type of thinking? Well, secular humanism has been shaping our collective mentality for so long that we've accepted it, embraced it, and now we defend it, even though it's all lies. We defend the secular humanist agenda, the goal. We gave up fighting. It was too hard. It happens over time, incrementally, quote unquote, progressively. Oh, how fortuitous for them. And that has opened the door to Islam. But Islam has never wanted to be incremental. They only act slowly until they have enough power in a little regional area to act openly. They're still all about the revolution, open warfare, jihad. But the problem we have is that the secular humanists have pushed this idea of nothing is there's no moral standard. Everything is morally neutral. And that's not true. Nothing is morally neutral. Not a thing in the world. So how can I say that and some other people say, well, there is no universal moral law? What are we doing here? One of us has got to be wrong. And I can tell you which one it is. By stating, Charlie, logic test, pop quiz, get on the screen.
Oh boy. Here we go.
If I tell you that it is a law that there is no such thing as a universal moral law, what did I just do?
Well, that's kind of equivocation, isn't it? Because you're using law to define law.
No. I just made a universal statement of right and wrong.
Okay, say that again slowly for me.
Okay. There's no such thing as a universal moral law. It's a self-contradicting statement.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's why.
Okay, well, that's not I know you were looking, you caught it, but you're using the wrong fallacy. This here is just self-contradiction. There's no fallacy there. It's just a contradiction.
Oh, okay.
And from a contradiction, what follows? Anything.
Anything, absurdities and
All
yeah,
yes,
all that.
absurdities.
Yeah.
All things follow. So, folks, I know which one's correct. There is a universal moral law. And this idea of cultural relativism is founded on a contradiction. We'll get into that today. I'm sorry, Charlie. I caught you flat-footed on purpose.
That's okay. Hey,
Higher.
Well,
You're
that's
a
why I'm
graduate.
Charlie. I'm Charlie. So,
You're graduate level logic testing now.
Yeah, and I'm not doing too well, but that's all right.
No. You had the problem. You just used the wrong idea there, the wrong term. So accepting that, what we're dealing with here is, and Charlie's right. I got it in my notes right here. Understanding the problem depends on how you define morality. So he wasn't entirely wrong. He's just at a different level of our problem. Culture wars. It's all culture war. And if you think that's not spiritual, oh, let me tell you, you got another thought coming. Morality, a universal law, depends on our creator. And the minute you understand that, we start arguing over whose morality, we're now arguing over who's God. That, brothers and sisters, is, by definition, a spiritual war. Now, go to your homework, and I linked you to it, and you've got part 2. This is class 575, but part 2 is down at the bottom. After those videos, it says part 2, cultural relativism, and then criticisms of. We'll get to that in a moment. Cultural relativism. This is from ethics. This is, what is this? Philosophy Institute. And it's a rather lengthy article. I just want to read the first paragraph because it's a good summary of what we're dealing with. At its core, cultural relativism is the belief that moral values and ethical standards are not absolute, but instead are shaped by cultural backgrounds. According to this perspective, what is considered morally right in one culture may be seen as wrong in another. For example, practices like eating certain animals, gender roles, or marriage customs may vary greatly from culture to culture, and in each society defines these actions based on its own traditions, beliefs, and social norms. This leads to the conclusion that there are no universal moral truths. Everything is relative to a particular culture. This is equivocation. I'll explain that as we go. That whole argument, that whole statement right there is flawed. It's fallacious. It's built on equivocation. What am I talking about? It's not the word this time. It's the concept. And that's why this one's harder to see. Morality and ethics are two different things. That's why I argue this. This is explaining ethics. But this same article just explained to you there is something deeper than ethics. That's where morality lies. We might come back to this in a little bit. I don't need it at the moment anymore for me to explain to you that this is a class where I'm going to do a lot of the explanation for you. You can go back if you doubt or question me. I don't mind that. Go back and look at what I provided for you in the homework. So, cultural relativism, we've just given the definition from a philosophy site. Now, here's the thing. Technically, one of the other pages that I have for you explains it in a little more detail. Right here, this is from Simply Psychology. Cultural relativism is the claim that ethical practices differ among cultures, and what is considered right in one culture may be considered wrong in another. The implication of cultural relativism is that no one society is superior to another. They are merely different. We're going to be harping on that today. It says this claim comes with several corollaries, namely that different societies have different moral codes. I disagree. There is no objective standard to judge how good or bad these moral codes are. Strongly disagree. And the job of those who study culture is not to compare these customs to their own, but to describe them. That's where I wanted to go here. All right. I agree with that, technically. If you're an anthropologist, I agree. You have no business evaluating the moral codes of a different society that you're studying. Anthropologists study human cultures across time, past, present, et cetera. Their job is technically, primarily, just to record, observe, record, and report. So yes, I would agree with that. But sociologists, that's a whole different ballgame. Sociologists are supposed to, it's kind of like psychology and psychiatry. Psychiatry tells you how it happens. Psychology helps you learn how to deal with it, how to cope with it. A sociologist is supposed to take what is learned from an anthropologist and apply it in a given society to try and help people improve things, improve life, improve society, improve themselves. They should, by my understanding of this, and remember, I actually have a sociology degree. I would argue that a sociologist must make moral comparisons. They have to, in order to do their job properly. If you want to work in social services in the government, you usually need to have a sociology degree or a psychology degree, one of the two. Why would I need a sociology degree? If all things in community are neutral, in your different subcultures, if it's all neutral, why do I need a sociology degree? How can I possibly go in there and advise somebody, how to better raise their children or do this or that? By definition, as a sociologist, I would be making moral judgments and using that to evaluate situations. There was a time where I thought about going into social services in Tallahassee for a while, in Capital Florida, when I was looking for a job. I was desperate there at that time. And my degree would have got me in. I could have worked for health and, human resources or whatever in the child welfare services and all this for the state of Florida. But I would have been making value judgments, both evaluating the cases I was for the state and then for the people I'm trying to help. So if cultural relativism is a true thing, if there's merit to it, then how the heck can a sociologist be neutral like cultural relativism says I'm supposed to do when the definition of the job says I have to make moral judgments? Based on what? See, that's the problem. Cultural relativism is self-defeating. It's the same way of saying there's no such thing as a moral universal. Well, if I say all cultures are morally equal, you just made a universal claim based on your cultural beliefs. You're the one who believes that they should be neutral or seen or understood as neutral. You just judged these other cultures by your cultural belief. You just destroyed anything and everything dealing with cultural relativism. Now, if you read through those links I provide you, you're going to find that it says a lot of times that the cultural relativism is attacked by philosophers, and it should be, because it's fallacious. The whole concept is grounded on a fallacious understanding or a fallacious assertion. It's grounded on a contradiction. If I'm a philosopher, I take a contradiction like that and I just throw it out the window. Say, well, Joe, you can't throw the whole baby out with the bathwater. In this case, I can. You built your entire quote unquote science on a lie. So there's no juice to be had there. Okay, you can squeeze excrement all you want. You're not getting orange juice out of it. All you're going to get is messy, stinky fingers. That's it. There's nothing else there. The problem is that most of the criticism of cultural relativism is found in scholastic or scholarly papers, like doctorate theses and books. Well, I put a note in your homework. This is most of the available criticism of cultural relativism is in a form of philosophical in nature, and thus they are offered in scholarly papers and books. These formats do not readily lend themselves to the blogging format being used right here in this post. The reader, if sufficiently interested, will have to do their own research. But I put up my little thing here. If the core claim, my position on this is if the core claim of cultural relativism is correct, that it is perfectly acceptable for Muslims to rape non-Muslim women, which is what Islam teaches they can do. That's why you have rape gangs running around Europe. It's perfectly acceptable for them to kill their wives and daughters for wearing skimpy or revealing clothing or dating outside of Islam. That Muhammad taught that. So you can't make a judgment on that. Well, how can you arrest some? Well, the law says the law only applies to your culture, not theirs. You can't legislate morality, remember? Okay. And it's okay to behead anybody who refuses to convert to Islam. So how are you going to hold a Muslim accountable to U.S. law? You're calling your culture superior to theirs. Oh, no, Joe, it's just the law. No, that's not what you're actually doing. Additionally, if cultural relativism is true, racism cannot be considered wrong. So let's get rid of all this reparations garbage and let's quit complaining about racism. There's nothing wrong with it. It's our culture. It's equal to any other culture. It's equal to the one you want us to be. Now, I'm being facetious here because I don't agree with that. But that's the logical extension. Nor can apartheid be wrong, or slavery, or any host of other self-evident wrongs. Heck, even cannibalism must be considered to be right within cannibalistic cultures. So if a cannibal shows up here and starts eating people, you can't put him in jail for murder. That's just his culture. In short, cultural relativism is nihilistic at its foundations. And therefore, by definition, it is logically self-defeating. Nihilistic, it eats itself. It destroys. And that's what it's designed to do. That's the whole purpose of cultural relativism. So, let's see the time. Let's do a bottom of the hour break. We'll come back. I'll continue with the critique on this mess. And we'll get into some specific examples that are giving our particular country and society, the Western world, trouble at the moment. Charlie, 3 minutes, I believe, sir. Please. Welcome back. I see Natasha says she has 125 saved books. The list just keeps growing. Well, you better start reading. Doesn't do any good to save them if you're not going to read them. Come on, you got time. Chop, chop, girl.
I gotta
Okay.
buy them first.
Well, some of them I can find the PDFs for you. You can read them on your computer.
Okay, that's true.
Start looking. All right. So we've already dealt with the logical fallacy in cultural relativism. Now let's look at it scientifically. They said that, different ways of dealing with women's role in society, different ways of dealing with this or that, different foods, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Folks, let's keep to the illustration I've used in the past. So because one society likes ice cream and another, logic test. Charlie, pop on the screen. Charlie.
It's getting there. Sorry.
He's resisting. He's afraid.
Yeah, very afraid.
Okay, so I'm going to give you the cultural relativist assertion, their claim. I want you to tell me the logical problem with it. So one society likes ice cream. Another society likes gelato. Another society says sherbet's the best. Another society, because they're Eskimos, they say no, it's ices. And another Eskimo society says nope, it's snow cones. So the cultural relativist says, see, there's no common denominator here. You can't judge one over the other. It's just they're different. That's their moral code. What's the best thing to be eating here for dessert? What's the fallacy here?
It's all ice cream.
Yes, it's all a frozen confectionery.
It's just a different kind of flavor or construction, but it's the same concept, same idea.
See, he gets a gold star for that one.
Ooh, hey, I got one right. Woohoo!
Yep. The anthropologist has not looked deeper. I told you there was a very famous study when I was in sociology school. I still can't find it, but I remember studying it and testing on this one study. It was done by a female sociologist, and she found across all known societies, past and present, that essentially they keep the Noahide laws. There's respect for your dead. There's respect for marriage. Now it all comes down to how they define it. So all of these societies say, hey, frozen confectionaries are great. Well, how do you define it? Ice cream, gelato, sherbet, ices, snow cone. It's a frozen sweet treat. They're great. That's what she found. Even cannibals had a concept of murder. So does Islam. Can't do all these bad things to a Muslim. But you can do them to non-Muslims because you're not a person. Couldn't do bad things to a German, but you could do them to Jews. Couldn't do bad things to a slave in colonial time. Oh, yeah, you could. Oh, that's just because they were black. No, not all of them were black. It was slaves. But you've been taught to associate slavery only with blacks. That wasn't the case. So you see what I'm getting at? This argument of moral relativism in the scientific realm.
In fact, there were
also
black
falls
slave
apart.
owners.
Yeah, there were. So there are common beliefs. So moral relativism, or cultural relativism rather here, has been defeated scientifically, logically, and scientifically. Thanks, Charlie. Now, I told you, sociologists are supposed to try and help people. Have any of you run across all of this stuff on the internet about, Somalis are in the news right now? Well, they're predominantly Muslim. For the most part, that's the predominant religion in that area. Well, they have a habit of interbreeding within their family, cousins and stuff. And this does lower their IQ. This is a actual observed physical fact. This is a reality. This is how that's their culture. And that's an Islamic culture. But guess what? That's a biblical culture. When Abraham wanted a wife rather, for his son Isaac, he sent to his brother's house, his father's house. He got a cousin for Isaac. It's essentially what he did, and married cousins. The difference is the Hebrews had a much broader genetic gene pool to draw from, and they didn't persist with this practice over time. Muhammad went backwards. He taught this as the way a Muslim's supposed to live. So the Somalis are not necessarily following a culture as much as a religion, which is a culture. It's a culture of Islam. obedient Islam. Well, I look at this and I see mental health issues, lowered IQ, and different genetic disorders. So I see health issues as well. And I also see that it leads to a stagnant society. Now, if I look, my educators will tell me that, Islam has a rich cultural background. Look, they taught us about the constellations and the stars and astronomy and mathematics. No, they didn't. No. Your mathematical background comes from the Arabs. They're not Muslims. Arab culture predates Islam. Your astronomy comes from the Persians. They're not Muslims. Their Persian culture predates Islam. So the extent that these things continued after Muhammad, people today, because it's cultural relativism, will say, look, Islam is steeped in literature and math and astronomy. No, it's not. No, it's not. Well, Joe, you don't know. Look, the teachers are proving. No, they haven't. See, Muhammad said no music and no art. Those are things of the devil. So if you're following Muhammad, you couldn't possibly be teaching mathematics or astronomy. But if you are a Arab or a Persian trying to survive within a society that has been taken over by Islam, well, then that will be seen. But a cultural relativist will give credit to Islam for a cultural trait that actually belongs to the Arab or the Persian still residing within that society. It's a subculture. And we're not looking at it deep enough. When I start looking at it deep enough, I see that all what you would call fundamentalist Muslims are stagnant societies. What do I mean by fundamentalist? Just those who actually obey the teachings and traditions of Muhammad, because they're not allowed to use technology. Yes, that means your terrorists are violating the tenets of Muhammad. Yes, they are. Every religious faith in the world is really good about cherry picking what it wants to believe. Now we're going to get to DEI. DEI says that because of the different subcultures within the United States, we have to work, because, people of a certain skin color have this subculture. So we need to hire them as, because they learn differently or they have different importance in their culture. And that's no reason to say they can't be a pilot. So I'm going to hire these people based on their skin color to make them a pilot. Well, they had the training, Joe. That doesn't mean that they passed. They can't even read, but yet you're going to give them a pilot's license because of, different cultural, moral. That's what's happening with DEI. That's cultural relativism. Well, when you're doing something like this based on cultural relativism, something that is logically untenable, which logically self-contradictory, scientifically false, sociologically destructive, because it presents a danger to others in aviation, in medicine, in education, in government. It also will eventually lead to tyranny because it requires force to make that moral claim, because that's what this is. Cultural relativism and DEI, it's just a color revolution that requires force to institute it, because your society is naturally going to push back against it. So in short, morally, rationally, and scientifically, cultural relativism is a lie. It's self-contradictory, it's observably false, and it leads to a degradation on society, which proves it's wrong. Factually, logically proves it's wrong, because it is asserting a cultural standard on the world that destroys all other cultures, or at least all higher order cultures. And that's the point. Nihilism, destruction. Have you ever noticed that this DEI and cultural relativism thing is never pointed at a lesser society, a less developed or a less culturally significant society? And it's never pointed at a society that will defend itself. It will not be pointed at Russia. You point this mess at Russia, Putin's going to have your head on a platter. and rightfully so. Should. There's a reason Islam has not infiltrated Russia that heavily, because the Russians have kept it in the stands. Militarily, they have opposed it. Alexander Dugin may be a lot of bad things, but he's not stupid. And he's the one that's advising Putin on these things. And he's looked to history, just like our founding fathers did. And he's like, well, these things are not going to do well. And then he looked to the West and he says, the West is committing suicide. So it's going to be up to Russia to save civilization, classic civilization. That's a lot of what Dugin's after. And he's not wrong. Not in his core observation. Moral relativism, cultural relativism, same thing, because cultural relativism claims that there's no such thing as moral absolutism, moral objectivity. So moral relativism within the society, cultural relativism, conceptually they're fairly interchangeable. They're kissing cousins. So what this is it's just another weapon to destroy the Western world, Western civilization. Why the West? Charlie, picking on you again, brother. Why the West?
We're easily manipulated. I mean, it.
Dig deeper.
Well, and of course, if you go from a religious perspective, it's attacking the Judo Christian ethic or whatever morality, whatever you want to say.
That and the rule of law. Yes.
Yeah.
It's using the rule of law to destroy the Judeo-Christian culture.
Yeah, kind of like with the Antiochus Epiphanes and Hanukkah, but that's just another thing.
Yes. And this has been a practice within the Western world for a long time. Even the Judeo-Christian church, within the Christian church, the spiritual leader who is to come will seek to change the Torah and the Moedim. Well, they did away with the Torah and they changed the Sabbath and they changed Pentecost and they changed Passover and they changed feasts, booths, tabernacles, all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why would you do that? Because it destroys the way. It destroys the tenets of the way, what the scripture teaches.
Well, that's what, like Antiochus Epiphanes, that's what he was doing, is he wanted all his people to be one people, one culture. And so he forced that culture upon them, and that's what caused the Maccabean revolt and such. But that's the problem today, though. I don't think we have any hammers out there like Judah Maccabees that will rally together and fight back against this, because it's coming to America. I mean,
it's already here.
Yeah,
it's already here.
It's here, but I mean, it's going to get worse.
Now, I've got a friend, and you know who he is, but he says, look, statistically, these Muslim attacks in this country are going down. They're not that big a deal. So Islam might be a problem in the whole other world, but it's not a problem in the United States, based on statistics that he's reading. Now, here's the thing. I couldn't get him to acknowledge this. I tried to ask him this. I said, well, who's reporting this statistics? Because I bet you if I look, the people reporting it are Muslims. Or they're leftists in bed with Muslims. Well, then, like that the DC cop, the police chief of DC, who falsified their crime statistics to make them look better, like they do in Chicago, where they falsify the left falsifies statistics all the time. They are children of their father. They are a liar from the beginning. So they lie. And if you're going to, and this is what I'm talking about, this individual is embracing the secular teachings that we've been taught over time. You have to have proof. You can't accuse people without proof. Here, look, the proof says statistically Muslims aren't a problem. Except that's a lie. The emperor has no clothes. Well, until you show me proof. Now, where do I go with this guy?
Yeah, but I mean,
and he's technically on, he's on our side. He's supporting, quote unquote, our side on this. truth, justice, the American way. He doesn't realize he's blue pilled. He thinks he's redder than red, and you can't get him to see it.
But why did the Muslims need to be violent if they can be elected into office in New York City? I mean, that and then once they're in power, oh, look out. But they're very patient, and they can do things in what appears to be a peaceful manner. But then once they get control, like Dearborn, Michigan, look
or
out,
there's enough
because,
of them.
Yeah. Well, enough of them, or they've seized.
I have
sufficient
videos
power.
of Muslims that were imported by Obama, and it wasn't Biden. That was still Obama running the show. Biden didn't know where he was most of the time, and folks know it. And this Muslim is flat out telling America, oh, heck no, we're here to take over. The imams, I've shown you videos, folks. Do you remember any of the videos on this show of the imams saying that they will fly the crescent over the capital of the United States?
Oh yeah.
I've shown those. They said they would do the same thing to England. What's happening in England right now?
Oh yeah. Ooh, it's bad there.
Y'all know the story. I can't pronounce her name. See, Martina Oganowska. She's an 11-year-old girl. And she stabbed some Muslims were raping her, trying to rape her and a little friend of hers, young girl, both of them under 12. And this is the second time this is happening. One time they got raped. This other time it's in the process. And she stabs them. She's the one they arrested. They arrested her for defending herself from a rape gang. That's Sharia law, boys and girls.
Yeah, it is. Unfortunately, that's what's coming.
If that starts here in the United States, I'm getting some good old boys together, and we're going to start Kyle Rittenhouse patrols every night.
Yeah. I mean, the people don't realize what they're asking for. You see these, LGBTQ people, protesting for pro-Palestine and things like this. And they have no idea what would happen to them specifically.
Not will.
Yeah.
Will.
Yeah. I mean, it's.
And then this friend of mine, and if he's listened, I don't mean to single him out. I'm not using his name. He says there's a difference between American Muslims and these radical Muslims. Well, you're importing the radicals. And these American Muslims, according to Muhammad, are not Muslims. They're apostates. And you kill the apostate even before you kill the kafir, the non-believer. So your American Muslims are going to be killed by the Muslims that Obama imported. And did you notice, for a good Christian, I'm being very facetious here, Obama only imported Muslims. And he helped with the Arab Spring. The Arab Spring was done by Obama and the CIA.
Geez. Yeah.
After he put Muslims in charge of the CIA and the U.S. intelligence community. This is all known fact. This isn't speculation. It's not conspiracy theory. If you were paying attention back in the day when Glenn Beck was still on Fox News, he was telling you all of this. He gave you the documentation. He provided the receipts, man.
And
he told you
billions
who they
of dollars that was transferred to Iran right when he went out of office. And so, I mean,
it's called treason.
And if you, at least, and I don't know this as well as you do, but if you look at eschatology from a Islamic perspective versus a Christian perspective, when their 12th imam or whatever they call him comes in and the Sunnis actually accept him, Katie bar the door. I mean, it's all over, because then your peaceful Muslims will chop your head off just as quickly as
the last study I remember on this, it's over 10 years now, and I just don't care anymore because I know what's happening. I don't need to keep up with it. It's a fact that I know about. And you can argue with me all you want. That's fine. I don't care. The last study I read on this, 67% of all peaceful American Muslims said they want Sharia law, and that if a caliph is appointed, and declares jihad, that it is right and they would join the jihad against America. That's the Sunni. It was 80, almost 90% Shia said they'd do it. So if you've got, they say it's 4 million Muslims in America, the 4 million imported Muslims. It's more than that. But if you got 4 million imported Muslims, about 10% of them are Shia, or should be, depending on where they came from. So essentially what you're going to have is about 70% of all Muslims in America are going to pick up a machete and start yelling Allah Akbar and come after your butt the minute that they have a caliph that declares global jihad. Yeah, that friendly, he's peaceful, good Muslim next door to me is going to come after your head. You know why? Because if they don't, their brothers will come after their head. Then go get yours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very convenient how Muhammad put this together. That's another series we're going to do after the first of the year. I'm going to teach you about Islam. And I will probably start that on the 8th of January, that first Thursday. And we're not talking about a one-day class on Islam. This will probably be an 8+ session class. And I'm going to walk you through Islam. And I am going to read a great deal of the Hadith to you. And I'm going to provide it for you so that you can go see I'm not cherry picking. You have to understand what you're facing. Now, here's the thing. They're just as good as the founding. Well, no, the founding fathers were evil because they were slave owners. So are Muslims. Who do you think was selling the slaves to the English and the Dutch to sell to the colonies? The Muslim slave traders. What? No, it was blacks selling other blacks. Oi. They were Muslims. Do a little homework. Well, I can't do the homework, Joe. I've got to watch My Three Husbands and Two Wives of LA tonight. Or see who, what so-and-so is eating for dinner on Facebook. It's about choices, people. Yes. I think I know who that is, Mr. Quest. Muslims are still selling slaves to this day, never spoken about. There are more slaves in the world right now than there were during the founding fathers' time. And a lot of these children that go missing in this country, especially teenage and young 20s women in this country, white women, they are finding their way over to the Middle East and they're being sold into sex slavery. It's being reported as though it happens here. And some of it does.
Oh, permanently. Ooh. Good job, John.
Well, you won't be on YouTube very long.
No, they won't tolerate you. You might want to get an account on Rumble.
We're going to have to give, we need a new badge for John. We need the Facebook Medal of Honor.
Oh, my.
Well, you can always get a Rumble account. They're not going to get rid of you there unless you go really crazy.
That's what I said. Yeah, you need to
you're going to have to get crazier than Candace Owens to get kicked off of Rumble. Facial recognition.
Oh my gosh.
Boy, you ticked somebody off.
Yeah, you got slammed hard there, buddy.
See, that's another thing. If in the first of the year we're going to start I don't want advertising. I'm going to do a recruiting campaign, but if we can find a few more donors, we can actually make the live chat 24/7. I think it's going to cost me like $25 or $50 a month, but I've got to know that we can reliably, because I can't afford that. But between all of us, if we can recruit, if each of us recruits one new classmate, then by the average of numbers, we're liable to find enough people in that new recruiting class that will help us get this up. And then we could have a live chat where we can talk to each other whenever we want. At least our community, wherever you are. It's connected to Rumble, but it's a live chat. You can put it on your phone and you carry it around like Facebook. At least we could talk to each other. And yes, I know, echo chamber, but hey, it's also a matter of a community that knows and supports each other to help each other get through what's going on in this world right now.
Yeah.
I got an email just yesterday. if you were watching yesterday, Waterjug said that he felt better with his struggles knowing that I struggle. Well, we're supposed to help each other, support each other, lift each other up. Well, I got an email this morning. It was on the computer about somebody else who was watching, saying that yesterday was uplifting for them because they'd been struggling and they'd been having a hard time following, their faith. And I was told that what we did yesterday helped that brother. And in the process, that helps us here, lets us know that we're not whistling into the wind. Because sometimes it feels like we're not just whistling into the wind. It feels like we're whistling into a Cat 5 hurricane. You whistle and the hurricane screams back. So, anyhow, that's going to pretty much wrap us up for this year for the Road to Concord. We'll be here tomorrow to the next 2 chapters in the Dr. Heiser's book. But, Charlie, you got anything before we say goodbye from the Road to Concord for the year?
Nah, I mean, just be safe and see you in the new year. And
clear your throat one more time. Whatever.
Yeah. Hanukkah Sameach.
Easy for him to say. All right, then. Let's get going. We appreciate you being here with us. We love each and every one of you. Even those of you who disagree with us, you're going to call me a racist and you're going to do it backhandedly in a way that then you're going to turn around and say, I never said that. You're not going to be here long. We don't play those games. Homie, don't play that game. Now, if he'd have come on and said it in a more civil manner, I might have even engaged him. But if you're going to be ugly, or if you're going to be disingenuous, intellectually dishonest, I'll police the board for the benefit of the other members of a civilized discussion. You don't have to agree with me. I do demand that the audience conduct themselves with some decorum. And if you're going to insult the host is going to fire back. That's all there is to it. And seeing as how I have a sniper in the winds, you're the one that's going to get killed. And I don't mean literally, folks. She calls herself a sniper when she boots you off of the discussion. Yes, ma'am. You're approaching the same number of kills by now as Dr. Ruth.
Aw, you flatter me. Sweetest
You
thing
older
you've
folks,
said to me.
you older folks on the show, you might remember, Dr. Woof, little lady, sex therapist. You guys know that she is, I think today, still Israel's highest scoring sniper. Yes, that little old lady was a sniper for Israel back in the 1940s when Israel was winning its independence. I think it was 67 confirmed kills. So, anyhow, I am a charter member of Kooks, Keepers of Odd Knowledge Society. We love each and every one of you. We thank you for being here. We will be back January 5th, Road to Concord, January 5th. That'll be a housekeeping day largely. I've got a lot of things I want to talk to Charlie and Natasha about, some changes we're going to have made, most of them cosmetic and a little bit dealing with some deeper, really serious. I've been trying to slowly move myself more and more towards serious, meaty content in what I'm teaching you. But I also want to get more toward where we can have discussions. So again, if I can find the money to do so, we're going to get the auto jack phone back up and running again. Or we just might have Charlie post the phone number and screen for us. That would be easier when you're, because you can do that.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
That's the cheaper way to go.
Yeah, and I don't know that using the jack will help us that much.
The only thing that does is let me take calls when you're away. But that doesn't happen often enough to
And I don't know how well that would interface, but I mean, we could play with it. But
well, like I said, you're not gone so often enough that would warrant a $300 a year expense.
Right.
Or $600
But we did just have a suggestion. Actually, our AI suggested this.
What's that?
You were talking about a 24/7 chat. We can actually do that now for free if our audience is willing to download the Signal app. This would provide an encrypted way of doing this. We could set up a group on Signal and we could invite people
That's
into
free.
that and do it for free. So just a
Yep.
thought.
And
If
it's
people,
still-
if you're interested in this, email joe@theroadtoconcord.com or admin@wewhoarelost.com, and we'll set that baby up.
Yeah, we could do
So-
that. That'd be a good idea. Because then we could sit and watch people, and then we could have our own private yuck and watch people on different shows and things live together, and maybe we could find somebody to call up and say, hey, there's a rainbow in your ear. Ah! If you don't know about the snake guy, I'm just playing off of his idiocy. No, I would no more call in and disrupt somebody else's show than I want them disrupting mine. I want a golden rule: treat others the way you want to be treated. But there are ways to do it civilly. And lo and behold, as acquired of a taste as I am, I can do that when I want to. It's just catching me in the mood to want to do that. It's a warm day in the North Pole when that happens. So we were getting out of here. I want y'all, if you're not going to be with us tomorrow, I'm not one of these ones who tells you not to enjoy Christmas. I don't do it anymore in my family, but it is still a time of year when a lot of families are together. Value that. Your family. Try to set the political things aside while you're with your family. Because a lot of times we have bad feelings toward family, and it carries over into grudges, and then one of them dies, and then you can't fix it after that. And you'll regret it. Not always, but if you live to be old enough, you're either going to get hard and you're going to dig in and you're not going to care, or you're going to get wiser and you're going to realize that was stupid and you wish they were back because you miss them. So err on the side that you might get wiser and try not to create more problems for yourself and your loved ones than necessary. And if you are still keeping Christmas, just pray on that one. So we'll deal with that going forward, but not the way that a lot of people do. The folks who will beat you over the head with it, what we call the pagan Nazis. That's not going to win anybody over. Education. That's how we do this. Education and an appeal to faith and love of the Father and Son. And then just leave it to the Holy Spirit. But y'all stay safe, okay? I will, tomorrow afternoon, I'll have a post up on the Road to Concord with 1.5, 2 dozen suggested shows from the past that you might want to watch if you're missing us. Or you could go to our playlists. I strongly suggest going back and reviewing our shows on eschatology, on end times prophecy. Oh boy, is that good eating, especially after you've been through Dr. Heiser's book. But we'll see where it all goes. So no matter what you're doing, I know that the Father has people still stuck in Mystery Babylon. He says so, not me. Come out of her, my people. So wherever you're at, here's to hoping that the end of the year is a good one, a safe one, and that we'll see you again January 5th of next year, and that we'll have an even better year than we've had this time. And hopefully we'll be able to find a way to grow this show a little bit, not because we want numbers or money or anything like that, but because we want to help more people and grow the kingdom in the process. They're mutually supportive, mutually interlocked goals, ambitions, ideas. So until then, we love you. Y'all take care. Stay safe. Bye-bye for 2025 from the Road to Concord.